Alright, so today we got this brush mower to fix here. That's an old lawnmower I pulled out of the woods, don't worry about that. This is a mower we use around camp. Same engine, that's why I pulled that one out of the woods. But don't worry about the lawnmowers, that's what we're working on. So this is a DR field and brush mower. If you can read that, yeah, there we go. Manufactured by Batchholt Brothers Inc. So these are pretty nice little brush mowers. They're self-propelled, so it's got this chain drive here to drive the wheels, and it's a continuous shaft right through, so both wheels drive off of that one chain drive right there. So you got levers to engage pulleys to engage that chain drive, so this lever pulls that pulley down there. If I had the belts on, it would work. And then the cutter head is, I think, this lever. This lever is a cutter head. So that pulling this engages the cutter head, and then pulling it back this way disengages the cutter head. And it's basically just a mini brush hog that you can walk behind, self-propelled, everything, and you just walk behind it and mow stuff. And reason that this is next on the to-do list is because we have a ton of brush coming up around here. So you may or may not have seen a recent video I did where we had to cut down a whole bunch of trees down in camp here. And you can see where all these tree tubes are here, we planted new trees. I don't think I filmed that, but we did. We planted new trees all over, approximately where old trees were. We're trying to grow things back up. So the deal is everything down here is white ash, and there's an ash borer beetle coming through and it's killing everything. And we don't want the trees falling on people or our buildings or anything, so we don't want the trees falling down, so we got to cut them down before they can fall down. So this one is actually kind of healthy still, but it's also not. You can see here, that's a hole there, that's the ash borers getting in there, right here, over here. So they go in and they lay eggs in there, and then the larvae go through and they eat all the living part of the tree out, and then the tree dies. And pretty much they'll kill any ash. They're an invasive species. The ash borer beetle is an invasive species from China. I think China. Somewhere in Asia. Pretty sure it's China. But this is what's happening now. So this used to all be just like forest ground in here, right? So what happened is we took the trees down. Now the trees, because there's no trees blocking the light anymore, this isn't forest ground under here anymore. It's turning into like brush everywhere. So we need that brush mower to keep this stuff at bay. Everywhere in here we mowed with just a regular lawn mower, and that's fine as long as we don't have stuff like this. We can't mow this with a lawnmower. We could drive up here through the tractor with the tractor brush hog, but that's kind of a pain. The tractor brush hog is a tow behind, so the DR is nice because it mows in front of you and it gets the stuff out of your way in front of you. So they still make these things, but they're a lot more modern than this one is now. I don't know how old this is. It was my father-in-law's. The engine seized up on it, so he bought a new one. He bought a new one, and then he gave me this one, so now we gotta make it work again. I'll show you the problem, what's wrong with this engine. First, I'm going to rebuild the replacement engine. So I got that engine from my brother's house. He has a whole bunch of old Bergen Stratton engines laying around. My uncle used to repair them, so he just got a ton of them. So that one was just laying on the shelf. It turns freely, or it did. Hopefully it still turns freely. Yeah, there we go. Well, it would if I wasn't jammed up, the flywheel wasn't jammed up against the cutter head there. Alright, see, turns freely, valves move, everything works as it should. Now, the reason I'm going to rebuild this before I put it together is because it clearly was burning oil or something. There was a ridiculous amount of carbon in here. I already scraped out most of it. It was just like caked with all sorts of carbon in there. So I'm guessing that the rings in this are shot. I'm going to try to reuse the jug and everything, but I got new piston and rings, and I'll measure everything and see how it measures out, but we got to take this home and rebuild it and then put it on. I was actually just going to film putting it on right now here, but then I realized that this thing needs more attention before I go slapping it on there. I just took the head off to take a look at it, and that's what it looks like. So I'm not exactly sure what sees this up. I'm leaving it all together right now because I need to transfer a lot of parts from this onto that, and I don't want to take it apart and forget how it goes back together and then not be able to put it back how it is. So I'm going to rebuild that one, transfer everything to that one, then we can take this one apart. We're going to go rebuild that. Alright, so I got the engine back at my house, so I'm going to do the rebuild here. So here is what we have for parts, at least part of the parts. This is a new old stock ring and piston set. I think I have to reuse the existing wrist pin, but hopefully that's not an issue. I also have this new old stock gasket kit, and hopefully this is usable. I'm not even sure what this stuff was, but it's I'm gonna say I probably can't use it because it has depressions in it, the shapes of gaskets. So I probably can't use those parts. Hopefully I don't need to. I don't even know what they're for, honestly. But all the rest of this stuff I should be able to use. And really the most important thing I need, that I absolutely need, is this head gasket and probably the main shaft seals, which are some of, I don't know what's what here, but that's probably the stuff that I really need. Everything else is probably, I don't really need it, but I'll use as many of these gaskets as I can, or as I need to. Hopefully it doesn't leak oil when we're done. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is crack this plug free, and we'll find out if it has oil in it together. And if it does, I'm going to have to get a catch pan, because I don't think there's any oil in this engine. Wow, that's tight. Okay. And it has oil in it. Okay. I gotta get something to put that oil in. Plus side, it looks clean. It smells a little bit like gas, but not a lot. It's pretty thin. I don't know what kind of oil is supposed to be in this machine, but whatever's in it right now is thin. It could be diluted with gas. I don't really know. Alright, we got an old used oil jug, and I'm just gonna dump the oil directly in here. Try not to drop the plug in there. Alright, there's not much. Oops. Might help if I move it. There's not a lot of oil in there, actually, so let me see if I can crack the oil fill open. Okay, so I think this was drained of oil previously, or it leaks. Hopefully it's not that one. But like I said, I have gaskets, so we'll see. Now, I know nothing about this engine. I don't know where it came from or why it was taken off, whatever it was taken off of. All I know is it turns. I'm guessing it burned oil. Oops. I'm guessing it was an oil burner, and that's why it was taken apart. So I'm gonna call that good. I'm never gonna get all the oil out of it. Alright, so I went and found the right socket for this. It's a 1/2 inch. So just break this case free and we'll see what's behind it. Hopefully it's something good and we don't find carnage. I have no idea the state of the cam other than the valves lift and lower when they're supposed to. Well, presumably when they're supposed to. I'm not even sure if it's when they're supposed to. But they move. So the valves move. That's a good sign. Well, that's very oily. I wonder why that is. That's a top bolt. I guess the cam, does the cam get a separate oil? Because there's a, I think the cam's in here or something. There's a little box up here. I've never taken one of these engines apart, so I don't really know what I'm doing. We're going to find out together. Yeah, I don't know why that would be oily up here. Unless there's a secondary compartment up there that's got different oil in it, because I drained the case, it should have came out the bottom. The fact that it had oil all over it, it makes me a little bit worried I'm about to make a giant mess. That's never stopped me from... but if I do make a giant mess, it will not be the first time I've done that working on something, so... Let's find out. Trying to figure out where I can pry this, where I'm not going to wreck the gasket. Alright. I'm also trying not to get in the way of the camera. I really don't want to wreck the gasket, so I'm trying not to like stick a screwdriver in between. But I don't really see how else I can pry this. It's thinking about coming. This seems like a job for the brass hammer. But I don't know where it is. I do own a brass hammer, but it's not in the hammer drawer. So ball peen hammer it is. If I do just break this case in half, I do have another one, so it wouldn't be the absolute end of the world. I think that my seal here is stuck on this shaft. 80 grit might be a little bit aggressive, but it's one of those times where it'd be nice to have 6 or 7 hands. Alright, I got the thing laying on its back now. I don't think this shaft was the problem. Something different's going on. Okay. So what it is there's actually a surface in here, right, that it looks like was kind of press fit. I don't know, is that an oil fit or is that a... It's got to be, because that's part of the shaft, so this must actually be a bearing surface in here, and oil must come in. I don't know how oil gets in there. Does it just drop in from the top? Maybe. I don't really know. But this whole thing, so this is the crankshaft in here. Here's a crankshaft, and it sits right inside here, and this is just directly a bearing surface for the crankshaft. It must be. So I think this is an oil seal here, but the oil seal wasn't holding it up. It was, I guess it was just the outside of this right here was a little bit rusted. So it wasn't the shaft up here that was screwing me up. It was the shaft down here. Okay, so I don't know what this is. It's some kind of weighted gear mechanism thing. It's still not evident to me why there was oil in the top, only in the top bolt. It's not very clear still. That was just sitting in the bottom of the case. I don't know what that does. Okay, so there's definitely some sludge in the bottom. It's not horrible, but there is definitely some sludge in the bottom. Okay, so there's a throttle control here. So I guess this is a governor. This must be a governor. That makes sense. It's got the weighted things. So as this spins, this gear meshes with this gear here, and as it spins, the faster it spins. If it's spinning fast, it pushes on this governor, and if it's spinning slow, it doesn't. The weights come back in. So that must be how that works. I wonder if that governor is messed up. because I think this is part of it. I think this plastic thing's part of it. And all right, after some further investigation, I found out what happened with this. I think it just came apart when I took the motor apart. I don't think there was anything wrong with it. If you just pull this all the way out, this can fall out of here like that. The gear is supposed to stay in place. The gear goes all the way on, and then when it spins, it pushes, these weights push this thing out here, right? And that pushes this lever. This lever's normally like that, and it pushes the lever that way, and it actuates the throttle. So that's that. There's nothing wrong with that, and I put it back together how it's supposed to be. Since this is a bearing service, I'm going to try to clean that up where it was real hard to come through. I'm going to try to clean that up with a little bit of Scotch-Brite. Just a little bit. You don't want to go too crazy with Scotch-Brite. You can actually... Scotch-Brite does eat through metal, believe it or not. Most people don't know that, but it will. If you rub stuff with Scotch-Brite long enough, you will take metal off of there, and you will make it... Like if you clean a shaft too much, you will make the shaft smaller. You'll grind some metal off of it. Sandpaper is obvious, but you'll do it even just with some Scotch-Brite. Okay, so the really good news with this case is I did get the gasket off in one piece, and it looks like it's in really good shape, and I should be able to just put it back on and not have to worry about that until it starts leaking, which it'll probably immediately do because I just said that I'm not going to do anything about it. Alright, now we're going to have to figure out how to get the rest of this apart. Camshaft is here, crankshaft is here. We got to get the crank out so that we can... Actually, I probably don't have to take the crank out. I probably can leave it right in, but what I do have to do is unbolt the piston rod. I could probably leave the camshaft right in and the crankshaft right in. I should probably take off this cover up here. Actually, I don't know if I can see anything in there. I don't really want to take any of the shafts out if I don't have to, but I do want to look at the cam lobes and make sure they look good. If this cam's bad, I can probably get another cam or take the one out of the other engine if it's good, or I'm sure I can find another cam. Now we want to spin this around so we're all the way down here. Alright, hopefully the lighting is bright enough in here that you can see what's going on. So what we got here, this is the crankshaft all the way at the bottom. I don't know what this thing is, but it's connected to our fold-over locks. So I think it's just like an oil slinger thingy. I think that's all it does is sling oil. We got to get these fold-over locks. I hate fold-over locks. I don't think they actually do anything. Like, I don't think that they actually hold anything shut. And they're hard to get on, and they usually break when you take... I mean, they're hard to get off, and they usually break when you put them back on. Okay, good enough. See if I can get a deep well on there. Is it the right size? I don't know if it is. Inch, but maybe it's 7/16. Nope. It's gotta be ½ inch. I don't think this thing's new enough for it to be metric. Trying to get this in a spot where I can pull on the wrench and hold the case. And I don't know if that's the spot that exists. Let me just put a regular old wrench on there. Okay. Regular old wrench does it. A doubled up one anyway. Does it. Come on. Okay, I got both of the rod bolts broke free. So this is not all one piece. The fold over lock thing is underneath. It's not part of the oil slinger. Okay, that's out. Now, cap comes off. It doesn't look like it has bearings. It looks like the cap is the bearing. Okay, interesting. Can I pull the piston out the top? I don't know. Okay, so I have the rod cap off. And now I want to lift the I'm going to lift it up to try to get the piston come out the top without taking the crankshaft out. I don't know if you can actually do that. But you probably should be able to do it, right? So there's that should come around. And then I should be able to push this up. Yep. Now, push the piston out the top. And there we go. It's the piston. The rings don't look horrendous. You can see there's some scoring on the side of the piston. And there's some scoring in the block. So I'm going to have to hone the jug on this. They call this a jug. It's not really a block, right? Because this thing, the upper part here is not part of this lower case. So it's not like an engine. There is no engine block. Like the top part here, they just call it the jug. It's basically a housing for your piston, and your two valves all go in this housing. Alright, so that's the old piston. We got to take this rod out. We got to use the same rod, same wrist pin, and the keepers for the wrist pin and everything, I think. Let's see what's in here. So here's our piston. Alright. Looks the same. That's good. So it's a new old stock piston. A bunch of packing stuff. So a two-piece oil ring here. I think it's a two-piece oil ring. Yeah. This is the oil ring. And we have two combustion rings. At least one of these is directional. So we'll have to pay attention to when we take it apart. They're also different thicknesses, so there's a top and a bottom. Let's see what we have in here. I wonder if this is the locking tab. That'd be nice. What do we got? Oh, it's not locking tab, but it's the locking rings for the... Okay, so it did come with locking rings. I wonder if this was supposed to come with a wrist pin. These locking rings are kind of rusty. I think I might just reuse the old ones because those ones are not rusty. Piston ring installation instructions. Okay. Alright, so that's all we got. Now, this is a new old stock kit, but that does not mean that nobody messed with it. And the fact that it was packed with this stuff leads me to believe that somebody has messed with it. At the very least, they put in that packing for shipping because it's possible that this kit didn't have any packing in it. And shipping nowadays, you need to pack things really well because shipping carriers don't give a crap about your anything you have. They will just abuse it. So you need to make sure you pack well. So we can see in here, there's some wear on this rod. It's not horrible. I mean, I can't even feel it with my finger, but it's visible. I'm probably just... I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to leave that. Now, these don't have bearings. There's no bearings in here. So, like, this surface is the bearing. So I think if you need new bearings, what you do is you replace the rod and the cap. It probably comes as an assembly, right? And you just replace it. I'm not going to replace it. I think this is fine. I'm just going to roll with it as it is. If I have issues... This is made of aluminum, I think. Feels like aluminum. It's really light. I think this will just, you're not going to wreck the crank. You're going to wreck this. So if I have any issues with this, I'll just put a new one on, and the crank should be fine. And it's not like it's hard to take this engine apart. So I'll probably I'm going to put on what I got, get the thing running, and Don't put any more money into it than you need to get it to work. That's the bottom line. If I start pouring money into this thing, I might as well just go out and buy a new mower, because the whole point is to not spend any money. So, alright, this is not really the right tool for this, but it probably will work. There is a set of actual ring pliers at my brother's house, but I'm not there, so I gotta use what I got. Interesting. This did not have this. I don't actually know where that goes then. I thought it was part of the oil ring. It is. It is part of the oil ring, I think. Yeah, this oil ring's different than that oil ring. So I think that is part of the oil ring. I think this is just different style. I'll probably just have... Okay. I'll take this one off. A real set of ring pliers would be so nice. I should probably buy a pair. But I don't really do engines that often, so might not be a good thing to spend money on. That one went flying. So this thing must be like every different ring set. Let's see what we have. We have chamfer, which is this one. So I think we're in that one. So chamfer up. Yeah, we're number 2. So we're in that second row there. And then this, I think, goes on the inside of the oil ring. Alright, let me clean all this stuff up because I'm getting it dirty. Alright, I put a bag down to try to keep the dirt off of everything. Now this oil ring, I believe this thing goes in first. And then this goes on the outside of it. I don't think that this is directional. So, yeah, this is symmetrical. That's the last one. So that goes like that. And it does not matter which way. I'm just going to put it this way. I don't think I need to gap these. Realistically, the bore is going to probably be a little bit too big anyway. Okay, so it wants me to put this, so this side, this ring, there is a chamfer on this side that goes all the way around. And there is a little step on this side, that on the outside, that goes all the way around. The step goes down, and chamfer goes up. Try to get that to go on. And this is when it's nice to have something that you can do this with. It'd be nicer if there were actually ring pliers, because then they wouldn't slip. And then this one is the thick one, and again it has the chamfer on the top. And we're just going to put that on. There we go. Got our rings on. Now to get this out, I think you just take a pair of needle nose and probably twist it. I don't really know. Maybe you got to pull it. I would expect you to be able to... If I move it this way, it moves. If I try to move it the other way, it won't. Because trying to go the other way expands it, but going this way contracts it. But I think I have to... Man, just keep spinning around on me. There we go. I had the right idea, but it just wasn't... It doesn't come out that easy. So you got to spin it the way that it can go and then pull towards you at the same time. And I think if you do it fast enough, or maybe you just have to... Man, does not want to come out of there. Alright, I got it started. Nope. Okay, I got it, but it was not easy. Man. Why can't you just put regular ring clips in there that you could get with these things? We have to see if we can. That should just slide out of there, I think. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That's a wrist pin. Looks pretty good. That mattered which way that went. So there's a little tab on here, and that goes towards. There's a number 1. And there's an XX on this side. Let's make sure this is the same. Okay, it's not a number 1, it's an L. And X, 1X, not XX. I don't know why I said XX. Alright, so this little tab goes towards the L. X is the other side. So, alright, so I'm just going to use some 10W40 to put this together with. I do have assembly lube, but I don't think it's really necessary. This isn't even a new engine build. There's really almost the only new thing is the piston and the rings. So, man, there we go. All right, like I said, the tab there goes towards the L, and the X is on the other side. And we're going to use the same keepers again because they're not rusty, and my new ones are rusty, and I don't see why these wouldn't work. Do they go in easier than they come out? That's the question. I honestly have no idea. Is there a trick to this? There's probably a trick to this. Some Briggs people in the comments are probably screaming at me that this is not how you do it. I can kind of tell it's not how you do it because it ain't working. Is there some kind of special tool for this or what? I have no idea here. Maybe you just do it like this. Nope. This is unnecessarily difficult. I almost had it. Luckily, it didn't go too far. I found it. I bet you they just send you more of these with this kit just because chances of you breaking or losing one seem very high. Someday, I will get this. Maybe I just need a better pair of pliers. These pliers I'm using aren't great. No, got the thing sideways in there. All right, now I got my drift underneath to hold that piece, and then up top, I don't know what to use. I don't want to stick my fingers in there. It's going to pinch me. Use another drift. Okay. It's like kind of almost there-ish. Alright, I'm just going to try to get the one in the piston first. Okay, I got it. that one is in. Now, we put this in, little tab towards the L, without dropping everything. Okay, now that's in. Now this side hopefully will be easier because it can't, there's going to be a wrist pin in the way, so it's not going to be able to push past it. Hopefully. Does that happen? I don't know. Now, we try to make the thing go in the thing. Will it work? Probably not. Why does this have to be so hard? Probably because I don't know what I'm doing. That's why it's hard. Come on, go in there. This is way, way more difficult than it should be. It's just a keeper. Keeper should be easy to put on. Get in there. There has got to be a trick to this. And I don't know what it is. Okay, got it in there. So that's together. Piston and rod assembly is together. Alright, so I got this hone here. It's brand new. We'll see how it works. Let's So there's some vertical ridges in here that I want to get rid of. I've taken kind of a lot of material out of there, but it's not quite down yet. I have a little bit of a ridge right here. I'm going to go all the way until that's gone. This cylinder may be getting oversized. The way I see it, I don't really care. I'm just going to slap it together and hopefully it runs okay. If it doesn't, I've got no money in this, so it doesn't matter to me. I looked at pricing out a jug for this, and they're very expensive. So it's not worth it for me to put a new jug on this. I just have to hone the one I have and try to make it work. And if it doesn't work, then probably just put a whole another new engine on this. Probably not new, but a different one. Alright, I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on camera, but there's still a scratch right here. I'm just catching it with my fingernail. Maybe I'll hone a little bit more. I was going to say I can't feel it anymore, so I'm going to be done, but I'm going to give it a little bit more and try to get that out of there. Alright, after a lot more time honing, off camera obviously, I've got this to where I'm happy with it. I cannot even see a ridge in here anymore. If I run my finger, I can feel it very faintly, but I can't catch it with a fingernail. I can just feel it with the tip of my finger. So it is a little, it's still there, but it should be smooth enough that this shouldn't burn oil, hopefully. I took a lot of material out, and I already wiped away most of the material that I took out. But just to show you what's sitting in the bottom, but this is all like aluminum paste in the bottom here, in the bottom of the case. I'm not measuring anything. I was originally planning on it, but it doesn't really matter if I measure it right now because it's not going to change what I'm doing. I'm putting the piston in and I'm going to run it. And if it measures out good, I'm going to put the piston in and I'm going to run it. And if it measures out bad, I'm going to put the piston in, I'm going to run it. So, really, there's no point in measuring. Okay, I got it wiped out with just paper towels, but this entire case needs to be washed out. Probably first with like diesel, maybe mineral spirit. Mineral spirits would probably be the best. Alright, I got mineral spirits. I got a squirt bottle here that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna fill it up with mineral spirits. I got this bin. I put the head down in there. I'm gonna set this on top of the head so it stands off the bottom a little bit, so that everything will drain out of the bottom of the case, because the bottom of the case just sits down, and if I just set it directly in there, then it would be, the bottom of the case would just be in a pool of mineral spirits, and it wouldn't, things wouldn't get washed off. So I got to take out this little pipe here. This is just an extension that somebody put in for the oil drain on this side, and it is tight. Thought that was going to be easier to come out than that. It's an aluminum housing, and putting a pipe in this hard is that's risky. Maybe it just got stuck from galvanic corrosion, maybe, I don't know. Alright, so both the plugs are out. Got it setting where I don't think it's going to fall over. Now we just wash it out as good as I possibly can. This thing does not want to pour. There we go. You're just going to squirt everything off and try to get all the aluminum out of here. This thing must have burned a lot of oil. Alright, I got the engine out here, but I just got this, I got the head, then I got the, this front cover. I'm going to try to rinse this out as good as I can. And now this has been kind of soaking in this stuff for quite a while, so hopefully this cleans up pretty well. Now this part here does kind of matter a little bit, because these are the cooling fins, and you really want the cooling fins to not be covered in dirt. I'm sure I won't get this perfect, but alright, I'm going to call that clean enough. It's still not perfect, but it's should work. Okay, the engine's dried out. And Tess wants to put it together. So I'm going to coat everything with just some engine oil. Get some engine oil in the rings on this, and then put it in. There's a little tab thing here on the end of the rod. It's only in one corner. That tab, when you put it in, when the rod comes down onto the crankshaft, it should be facing to the left of the case as you're looking at it, if you're looking at the open side of the case. So that's the direction the piston goes when you put it in. I'm going to get the whole bottom end together here, close up the case and everything. Then I'm going to take the carb off and look at that. Are you going to help, or are you just going to go watch the Bills game? Tess is a Bills fan. See? She got her buffalo socks on. I don't know if this seal is going to really seal. I'm not going to replace it because it feels good, but if it leaks later, I'm going to have to take the front case off and replace that seal. I have the seal replacement. There's no reason to take this one out if it's good. And I don't know if it's good or not, but it feels good. I'm going to dump some oil in and get it on that journal. There we go. I'm put some oil on the rod directly. Put some oil in the rings. I've got my ring compressor. And put that on. This is a universal ring compressor, and it goes really big. It's actually the same ring compressor we use on the bulldozer. You know what? I don't know if I clocked those rings. Yeah, see, that would have been bad. When you don't want your rings lining up. So I'm going to clock this away. So now they're all clocked differently. Alright, I got that ring compressor tightened up on there as tight as I can get it. Hopefully that's good enough to get it down in there. I'm going to run it. It'll be that way. Alright, it's in. So you can see right here is the rod. It's not touching the crank yet. That's the little tab. I'm gonna rotate this so it's in the light. Okay, there you go. That's a rod, and there's a little tab there. So tab to the left. The cap goes on like that. Now the oil slinger goes on the first. And then the locking tab, when you put the bolts in, first thing they go through is the locking tab, then into the oil slinger, then the cap. Alright, I got the cap bolts started, just barely, and it's really hard to turn them by hand, so I'm just going to use a wrench. Click. Alright, I'm going to say those are both tight enough. Okay, piston is in, the rod is bolted on, locking tabs are locked. Somehow I got dirt in the bottom of the case again. Alright, I'm going to try to get this case to go on. Turn it for you so you can see. Now, I think the most important thing is getting that plastic gear to mesh correctly without messing it up. Reach in there with a long screwdriver and get it to... Okay, seems like it's going on. Seems like it turns okay. Okay, front case is on. Hopefully that seal's good. I think it's actually might be possible for me to replace this seal without even taking the case off. Probably I could just put a screw in there and then pull it with a slide hammer and then slide the new one on and just put it on. So I probably don't even have to take the case off to do that. But it's not the end of the world if I gotta take the case off. Okay, case is all sealed up now. Alright, now let's find out what's going on with this carb. I was going to take it off here, but I can't get a screwdriver on this side next to that muffler. I might not be able to get a screwdriver in over here either. Let's see. Yeah, just barely. Some kind of weird bolt thing going on the bottom on this. That bolt was in the bottom. Yeah, that communicates with the intake. So this is an updraft carb. I don't really know how it works. Alright, unfortunately I lost some audio on this clip, but I'm just going to do some voiceover. So we got to take this carb apart. Got the main jet here, and up here is the idle jet. We're going to have to make sure both of those are nice and clean. So first step to taking most carbs like this apart is you got to take out the main jet first. And there's the needle for the main jet. And then we're going to have to stick a screwdriver up there to get the actual jet out. So there it is. And it actually wasn't necessary on this carb, but I wasn't sure, so I took out the idle jet too before taking the bowl off the bottom. So there's 3 bolts that hold the bowl on. So with the 3 bolts out, you can take the bowl off. Usually the gas gets stuck, so you'll have to break it free. So there's the bowl and the float. The float is that donut-shaped thing on the top cover. Underneath the float is a needle. You can see that little silver piece on the wire there is the needle. We got to pull that out. And there's a crossbar there that holds a float on. We also have to pull that, and then the float can be disconnected. This is the seat for the float needle, and you're going to want to make sure that's clean or the carb will overflow. And here's the main jet and the needle for the main jet. And the farther in that needle is, the less gas flows through the main jet. Farther out, the more gas flows. And the main jet determines how much fuel is used at open throttle. The idle jet, which is up top here, determines how much fuel flows at idle. So you need to make sure the passages are free and the needles are clean, or the engine's not going to run right. I should also mention that this passage here, I believe that needs to be clear too, and I believe that is the passage. I am pretty sure that this passage here is what feeds the idle jet. So that needs to be clear so that the idle jet can get gas to it. But yeah, that needs to be clear. Whenever you take any carb apart, if you ever see any little holes and passageways, just blow them all out with carb cleaner. They probably all need to be clear. Every carb is different, so, but that's a general idea. You need both jets clear, and you need the the seat clear. And some carbs on cars and stuff, they'll have a lot more jets than this and multiple barrels, but you know. But for simple carbs, they're just a single one barrel carb. And then one idle jet, one main jet. Alright, got some carb cleaner. And I'm just going to blast out some of the opening. So, just get that in there. Alright, that all looks clear. So whenever you have, these always have a lot of holes on them. So there's, on this one, there's a hole right there, there's a hole up here, there's a hole there, and a hole on the end. You just want to make sure that when you're squirting in it, stuff comes out of every hole. And none of them are plugged. This one should just be in here. I think that's literally it. So when this is plugged, when anything's plugged, this straw, if you just jam it against whatever's plugged and squirt, the pressure from this should blast it out and get it clean for you. Alright, and that's it. Okay, I got everything blown out. So here is the needle that's got to go on here. See, if you can see on there, that's the weird, I was talking about it looked homemade. It does look homemade, but that's the little holder for the needle that goes on here. This camera really doesn't want to focus. That goes on there like that. So this just holds on like that, and then drop the needle down into that seat. Drops in there. Then take this pin. That'll hold the float on. That pin holds the float in place. And take your bowl. It goes, this little hole here lines up with that hole. Like this. Come on. And then just 3 screws. Holding that together. You always put in the jets and the adjustments for the jets last. Most carbs have this long jet tube like this, and you can't take the carb apart if this is in there. Don't mind the song you hear in the background, that's just my washing machine. It sings a song when it's done. Okay. By the way, I did take this gasket off. That's a gasket that goes up here. I'm probably going to use a new one because this one looks frail. This is the gasket in between, so it goes on the upside of the carb. If this gasket doesn't seal well, air will come in through here, and it'll screw up your fuel air mixture, and the thing won't run right. So this gasket is very important. Put the needle in. Did I call that a needle? That's a jet. Put the jet in. Yeah, anyway, that jet will bottom out. You'll get it all the way in. It'll bottom out. Do not over tighten it. You can strip it very easily. It's made of brass. Just tighten it till it's snug. That's tight enough. I'm actually going to back this off. I'm going to have to adjust this carb anyway. So this is the adjustment. I'm going to back it off so that it's not, so that the adjustment won't bottom out, and then I can bottom this out right here. Usually the way you do carb adjustments is you put your adjustments all the way in, and then start like turn and a half out, or 2 turns out, 3 turns out, something like that, and just see how it runs and then adjust from there. So we got the main jet adjustment and the idle jet adjustment screw. I'll put that all the way in, and then I'm going to back it off. It's easier to do with a screwdriver. I'm going to back it off. Half, whole, and a half. So that's 1.5. And there we go. Carb's back together. It should be clean. There really wasn't a whole lot messed up in here. It probably would have ran as is. There was a little bit of crustiness, but none of the passages were blocked. So it probably would have ran just fine as it was, but it's always good just to check, especially when you have it in a place where you have all your tools and it's easy for you to do it. It's easier to do it here than in the woods. Alright, I'm just going to slap this back on the motor and then we'll be good to go. Alright, got the carb all put back on. Head is ready to go on, but I don't have the bolts. That's not happening right now, but I can set it up here. And then, one last thing to check is, do we have spark? Alright, I got a 12.7/8 that fits on here. This is like a square drive thing. It has an overrunning clutch essentially on it. This is for when you pull start it. I don't have the pull starter thing, but that goes on there, and then you can just put the impact. Now, I don't have to worry about this thing starting because I don't even have the head on it, so it's not going to start. Also, no gas. And the spark plug's not in it. But if you did have to worry about it starting, so you could use this to start it, even if the engine was ready to start, you could use this, because as soon as it starts, this thing will just keep overrunning, and then you can, pull away from it. Anyway, let's see if we have spark. This should just spark here. I have a spark plug in it. It's not the right kind of spark plug, but let's see. Okay, that's not what I want to have happen. I don't want to be impacting it. That's not good. That's bad. Hopefully I didn't just screw something up with that. Let's try something different here. This should be gentler. I'm going to put some oil down in the cylinder here. Just so that there's something lubricating that. Should be able to just spin this right over. I don't see any sparking happening. Maybe we want to just let it sit right there. Nothing. Well, it's not sparking. The other engine that's down there has a magneto on it, and it ran up until it seized up. So the other one's magneto probably works. So either this one's bad, or I shouldn't be using that spark plug, or something's messed up grounding. I know I said I wanted to see it spark here first, but it's not working, and I'm not going to fix it right now. So we're going to go bring it down and see if we can get it running. Alright, so I came down here with my truck to dump a load of wood, and I figured while I'm here I might as well just grab that and bring it back home. Since I have my truck here anyway, it'll be easier for me to put it together at home. Just gonna clean out the bed real quick and then we'll get it loaded. All right, we're gonna use the tractor to load it. Somebody filled my bucket up with crap, but it's just a little too heavy for me to easily pick up by myself. All right, we're gonna see if this just starts. Unfortunately, the ignition system needs to be gone through. I have the parts to do it with me, but I don't want to do it right now. I'm kind of in a hurry. So probably it's gonna run on like one cylinder and hopefully that'll be enough for me to get this loaded. Looks a hair low on oil. It's right in the middle. That's the full, but the empty's down there, so it's directly in the middle. So we're good on oil. Gas is a little wet here. That's concerning. Started. All right, the old Massey got the job done, but ignition definitely needs some work, and I got to figure out what's going on with that fuel bowl. The top of it was wet. It's almost like it's leaking up. The tank is leaking down onto it or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that, but that's for another day. Right now, we got to get this thing home and get the new engine on it and get it running so we can use it to clean up some of the brush around here. All right, I got the mower in the garage. I got the new engine, newly rebuilt engine, sitting on the deck, so now I can take the parts I need off of that and put them on this, make that engine look like that engine, and then see if it'll run. Alright, got to get this fuel tank off of here. I think it's just 2 bolts up here. That should come off. Yep. And gotta get the fuel line off. That looks like it's glued. I hope that's not an issue. Hopefully that doesn't leak. Man, this thing don't want to come off of here. I got it loose. Sorta. There we go. That looks like it's been Gorilla Glued. Not so confident that that's going to hold gas, but we'll see. That one wasn't even tight. The left one. I have had the head off of this before, so pick up the spark plug before I take the head off, because otherwise it's going to be hard to get out. Hopefully this spark plug works, because really hopefully the magneto on the other engine works and the spark plug works with it. But I'm not sure about that. We do have all the ignition system from this engine though that we could use instead. I'm gonna pull all the head bolts. Those I think are just a cover, so I should probably take that cover off first. There's a cover here on this side it's literally just a cover. And I don't actually know how easy it is to get off. A screw. Interesting. It's stuck to the magneto. Maybe the head will slide out. So the two studs go on this end. Gotta remember that. And whatever this thing is here, this goofy thingy, was on that one. Alright. I'm mostly just noting those things to myself right now. Okay, those all look the same. Oh, these are also the same, so they're all the same length. This thing goes with the bracket sits on this direction. Got that thingy, and then the head should come off. Yeah, there you go. That's the head. So, did burn some oil. You can see in here, there's a chunk out of the piston right there. It doesn't look like it contacted here. Maybe it contacted on that side, but I don't know how it would get turned then. But you can see there's a big indentation on the piston here. It's almost like something fell down in it, maybe through the spark plug hole. I wonder if, so I like I said, I got this from my father-in-law. I wonder if he changed the spark plug and accidentally dropped some debris down the cylinder and then it did that. Anyway, it's locked up right now. You can't, this thing doesn't move in here at all. Alright, that gives a closer view down in there. You can see there's this big dent here. It doesn't look like the wall super scored here. Maybe it ran with this smash like this, and then once it quit, so with it running, it could probably keep moving and pushing it up and down. But because I think it's just mushroomed out a little bit, but probably once you shut it off, you can't pull it anymore. So it's just jammed. All right, the air cleaner is new and different. You can see on the old one, it's got this big rectangle thing for the air cleaner, and I think you put a filter down in there or something. But I think I'm just going to use the new style. I think this is an older style motor. I think I'm just going to use this air cleaner. So I got to take the housing off and put it on the carb. I'm going to use the carb from the other one because I cleaned it. So you can see it's just a modern filter, but it's it's not exactly good when you can do that and your filter material disintegrates. So definitely going to need a new one. And it's also rusty, and I don't like that. There's rust up in here. So I'm going to have to clean this all up. It probably, that's probably rusty just from, so this sits like this outside. It was sitting like that, and water could get in there, which is not good. You don't want water getting down in here, because this goes into the intake, and then you can be sucking water into your carburetor. Alright, there we go. So that's a filter. Now, I can probably run this filter without that pre-filter on it, which I might do just to try to get it running, but I'm going to order a new filter. It's got the number there. So I got to get a 393957, whatever that is. I'm sure this is an off-the-shelf part you can buy. Yeah, I mean, just look at this. You can just... it is holding together a little bit. Not on this end, though. It's definitely... It's weird that this happened. It's almost like it got UV damaged, but I don't know how that would happen. I guess maybe light can get in there. But you can see that the paper filament is still fine. So you probably could run this. A little dirty though. So also the rubber on here. The idea is you need good sealing on both ends so that the only air coming through goes through the filter fabric. So if this rubber on here isn't very pliable, it probably won't seal very well, and then you'll have leaking in here, and that's unfiltered air coming through. Definitely best to replace that. Alright, looks like the way that this mounts on here is it uses one of the carburetor mounting bolts. Hopefully you can see this okay. This is the air filter housing, essentially. On top of here is where the air filter sits. This is just a communication channel to the intake. There's a bolt up here. That's the one that I was just pointing to. That's on the carburetor mount. This rod here that the air cleaner gets attached to comes down, is attached to this bracket, comes around, and is attached to this bolt, which is the bottom mount bolt for the carburetor. So you can see that whole thing will drop down now, and then this should just pop off of here, I think. It does have a, looks like it's got a vacuum line over here. Okay, got that off. That had an O-ring that I just broke. Hopefully I've got a replacement for that. But this O-ring here, that needs replacement, obviously. That ain't no good anymore. This is that vacuum line I was talking about. Vacuum line hooked to this thing here. So we're gonna have to transfer that, and we might have to transfer the plate that the vacuum line mounts to, because I don't think that exists on the, oh, it does. So that plate is there on the other motor. One thing off the bat that I think is gonna have to be swapped is this exhaust. It's probably not a requirement that you switch this exhaust, but the other one shoots straight out the back here, and this one has a 90-degree thing on the end to make the exhaust shoot this way, and that might be desirable because you stand right here. The muffler that's on the other engine right now is going to shoot the exhaust straight at your legs, and this one's going to shoot it over this way away from you. Probably will be beneficial to swap them. But I'm only doing that if I can get them off, because they're old rusty mufflers and I don't want to break anything. Alright, I'm going to have to pull this engine off of the mounts. I went to try to pull this cover off the front, and I got it loose, but I can't get it out without either taking the wheel off, which I'm not doing, or take the motor off. So, motor it is, since it's got to come off anyway. Funny, there's really not that much torque on these things. Like, I can get it with a 1/4-inch ratchet, no problem, but that 1/4-inch drive impact can't do it. Alright, maybe I can't get that one. Well, anyway, there's 4 mount bolts, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. I'm going to take those off and get this engine off of here. Alright, so I got the old engine off. Here's the new one that's going to go on. I'm noticing some differences here. This is a throttle actuation here. That's like a weird, that's like a round thingy, and then this, on this one, the throttle is like this slide here. I think I'm going to take this whole bracketry thing off of here and put it on here. That should work. That way my throttle cable will hook up exactly the way that it was before. And I don't have any weirdness with that. Choke is basically the same. This is the choke, and it's just manual right here. That's the same deal with this. This one's a little bit bent. It doesn't matter. You're just gonna choke like that when you go to start it. This pipe here actually will come in handy because the frame sticks out to about like somewhere in this neighborhood. And that one, if you took the plug off, it just dropped right on the frame. And here, now, it won't. So that's it. That pipe's actually an upgrade, and I'm going to leave that on there. What else we got? I already talked about these mufflers. I haven't tried to get them off yet. I will. If they come off easy, I'll swap them. If they don't, I'll do something else to address that difference. I got to swap the pulleys. There's 2 pulleys there. Nothing on this shaft. Yeah, I think that's about it. So off camera, I swapped out that throttle plate. I swapped out this thingy back here that has this vacuum line on it. I think that's about it up here, but... Alright, for the air cleaner housing, I need that new O-ring. So we're going to see if we can find a match. So that's the piece. Might be that one. That one looks too big. It's probably this one. Let's see here. Alright, I think that's the match. Yeah, it fits. That'll probably work. Hopefully it's snug on the carburetor. Oh yeah, it is. If you put it on far enough, it is. So it should be fine. See, the O-ring stays on there. This O-ring will work. The dark one is the one that came out of this engine, and the gold one is the one that came out of the other engine. And you can see the gold one's got a much bigger washer on it, so that's the one I'm going to use. Wow, it looks like it's stripped out. That's not good. That means that other carb is stripped. You can see that in there? It looks like a helicoil, but it's not. That's just threads. It ripped them out of the carb. This thing feels like it wants to cross thread. That might have been what happened in the other side. That washer actually might be too big. Whoever put that together last might have made a mistake there. I'm going to go get a washer that's the right size for this. And I'm going to use the original bolt. Alright, that's what I found for a washer. Hopefully that'll work. And I'll be able to get it lined up. Alright, yeah, that's much better. And it's just wrist tight. Now that's the other benefit of using only using Phillips head is it's hard to over torque it because you can't put a wrench on it easily. Just gonna snug this one up. Whenever you're working on stuff like this, you really got to keep in mind that this entire engine is made of aluminum. So you don't want to over crank stuff because you'll end up with threads pulled out just like I showed you before. Alright, throttle is switched over. Alright, gonna see if I got spark. This is the magneto from that motor and the spark plug from that motor. I think that should spark. I think. I'm not seeing spark. I'm seeing nothing. Well, it sparked me, so it's doing something. I was touching my hand here and holding that, and it zapped me. So it's not doing nothing. Well, I think I could just put the head on and spray some ether in here and see if it fires. Alright, this cover plate gets bolted on with the head bolts, and it's pretty thin metal and it's rusty, so I want to get this, just some quick paint on this to try to stop it from rotting. Alright, this is just Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer. Alright, while that paint's drying, I'm going to try to switch over as much stuff as I can over to this. I got to get these pulleys off. Let me see if I can find a different Allen wrench for that. Of course, I put this on there and it's ridiculously easy. I don't know why that vice grip slipped. I think it's going to need a puller. So here's a Harbor Freight 3-jaw. This pack, there's 3 3-jaws that came in the set. I immediately broke 2 of them as soon as I brought it home. So we'll see if I'm going to break the 3rd one now. You know what? Maybe I'll just use the Lyle. The Lyle will work on this one. It should. And this is an actually good puller. Wow, that doesn't look like 3/4, but I guess it is. I actually just moved the engine. It's funny. Yeah, the engine's moving now. Huh. That's weird. I wonder if this thing would just run then. I'm going to switch everything over to the new one because I have that one rebuilt. Now the new one I might have honed too much, in which case I might switch back to this engine. Who knows? We'll see what happens. It'd be kind of dumb if this whole time all I needed to do was bar this over with something that moves it better and then run it. The only reason you couldn't pull it, I wonder if the rings were just stuck. Wow, that would be really dumb. Anyway, this engine has been sitting for years because we thought the engine was stuck. We didn't try to bar it over very hard. These pulleys should not be that hard to get off, but guess maybe they are. Alright, let's see if we break the last 3-jaw puller. This thing is useless. Yeah, literally does nothing. This is just like night and day difference in quality. This puller actually works, unlike that Harbor Freight garbage. There's one. Alright, now the problem with this one is my jaws don't actually fit on this pulley. So I don't know if I can use this like this. Maybe if I do that and clamp it. I'm making a gap here. It's really pulling on the vice grips hard. I don't think that's gonna work. Vice grips aren't strong enough for that. If I can get it far enough away from the case, it's probably not a good idea to pry on that case though. But if I can get it far enough away from the case, I can get this down in behind it. And then I can just use this to pull it. Is it moving? Does not look like it's moving. Maybe if I can use this crappy puller to get it a little bit. Alright, that did it. That's why I don't want to go any farther. I'm bottomed out. Which one was it now? Was it that one? It wasn't that one. This one. So I had to get one where it's not pressing on the outside, it's pressing on that inner cone in there. So this surface here presses on the surface down in the bottom, see? Slides on. That way you won't bust your socket. If you press on this out here, you'll split your socket most likely. I don't know if this is going to fit in there with that key in there. I hope it does. It does not. Got the key out. There you go. It's all about having the right tool for the job and not a crappy version of it. Alright, now if I clean out the inside of this and the inside of this and the outside of the other shaft, they should just slide on, I think. I don't think they're supposed to be press fit. They're probably supposed to be very tight fit, but they're supposed to be able to slide on, I think. At least just easily tap on with a hammer. Alright, I already got this one on there. It goes on no problem. It's very tight, but it still goes on. And then the key will just set it in place. So if you're curious, this is what I did to clean it out. Just rolled up a piece of sandpaper, put it in there, and then just do this. It took me maybe 10 minutes to get that one actually clean. Nothing super sophisticated, just clean it with sandpaper. I did the same thing on the outside of the shaft. I'm using 80 grit, that's just because there was a piece of 80 grit laying on my bench, so that's what I used. Probably doesn't really matter what grit you use. You don't want to take any metal off, you're just trying to take the rust off. Rust and grease, so that it goes on the shaft easy. Alright, to give myself a fighting chance next time I take this apart, I'm going to put grease on the shaft and in the keyway. This one goes on first. Set screw in. There we go. I'm just gonna grease the inside of this. Again, set screw in. Just gonna eyeball it. I think about there is where they were. Alright, I got this little punch. I can put it down in where the keyway is and knock the key back. I need the key to be far enough back to reach the set screw, and currently it's not. Okay, that looks good there. Now on the set screws themselves, I'm going to put some Never Sees, because I want these threads to be able to come back out. I usually only put Never Sees on threads. I find most of the time, like shafts and things like that, grease works pretty well. But on threads, Never Sees. Some people say that they don't like Never Sees because they say it dries out. And they're right, it does dry out. It's supposed to. But it leaves behind dry lubricant. Leaves behind, depending on the type of Never Sees, it's got different dry lubricants that it leaves behind. But it leaves behind a dry lubricant that should allow you to loosen the bolt. That's tight. That should not back out on me. Okay, there we go. Pulleys are switched over. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is swap this fuel line over. This fuel line's not in bad shape, so I think I'm just going to use the same one again. I'm going to switch these heat shields, because this one's a different style, and this one's got like a little cutout to hold the fuel line. This one actually seems like it's kind of attached. This heat shield here is trapped behind this piece. This piece is the gas tank support, and I also need to swap that. So I'm going to pull that off. It's just 2 bolts there. And I'll swap over everything. Now these holes were unused on this engine, so hopefully they're clear. Those are nice and snug, won't rattle apart on me. Alright, I think I got this set up the way it's supposed to go back together. I'm going to try tighten this all down. First I'm going to snug it up, then I'm going to torque it. The torque on this is between like 140 and 160 inch-pounds. So I'm going to go 13 foot-pounds, I think. I don't have an inch-pound torque wrench, but 13 foot-pounds should be fine. Heads on. Let's put the plug in and see if we got spark. I'm putting 10W40 in it because that's what I got. I don't think it much matters. Now, unfortunately, this case doesn't have two sides. My other front case does have, there's another plug here. If you have two plugs, if you just take them both out, the oil can go in one side and the air can come out the other. But if you only have one, air's got to come out the same hole that the oil's going in, so it's a little bit slower. I think I just fill it until it comes out. I have no idea how much oil this will take. Alright, I'm going to say that's probably enough for now. I put in 1.5 quarts. I can feel it with my pinky in there, so. No sparky. That's kind of surprising because it did zap me. I wonder what it needs. I got this one, but I think this one didn't work. I'm not sure though. Alright, let's see if it does anything. It did spark. That might not be good. Hopefully you can see that. It's sparking. Now maybe that's just not a hot enough spark, but it's sparking. I can't believe it won't fire. Alright, I got no idea what's going on here. I checked the valves. Both valves seat very well. I took the head off. Then I spun it over slow to make sure everything's in time, and it is. And everything behaves exactly identically to that other motor. And that other motor I think should run. The only reason it stopped running is because it was locked up. Basically, he parked it for a winter, I think, and he came back. Originally, I thought something jammed in that motor. It looked like a ring broke and it jammed the motor up, but I don't think that's what happened. I think it just got parked for the winter, and in the spring the rings were stuck. Because once I broke it free, that motor turns off over perfect. So there's probably not really anything wrong with it. So this motor's behaving the same, so it should run. I really don't know why it's not running. It's got spark. I'm just going to put the gas tank on now and see if maybe the gas tank being off is part of the issue. I have the petcock off. I already put some gas in this, but I'm going to fill it up with a good amount and make sure that petcock doesn't leak. When I say petcock off, I mean it's turned off. The fuel's turned off. It's not removed. See, that goes there. It looks like I don't see any leaks, so I guess it's good. Just push this fuel line on there. Now you should be able to turn the fuel on. Yeah, I got fuel over here. Oh, and one more thing before I go is start this. So blast my ears out. I did manage to get both mufflers off, so I'm going to put this one on. It's got a ring here so I can set my position. So I'm just going to screw it in until I get it where I want it. think right there's where I want it. And then this ring can be tightened down. Now that muffler's on there tight. There, it popped. Probably gotta adjust the carb. I don't like that I'm dripping gas though. The float might not be doing its job. Alright, it is several weeks later, and this motor has really thrown me for a loop. So I thought I was having issues with the carburetor still. I took the carb apart, I rebuilt it again. I took the other carb from the other motor, I rebuilt that. Then I remembered that it had a stripped bolt in the top, so I couldn't use it anyway. And so I thought I was having trouble with the carb actually pulling a fuel air mixture into the combustion chamber. And I was. But it wasn't the carb's fault. I went through this carb, I could find nothing wrong with it, but it kept pouring gas out the bottom. So I thought the float must be messed up, or the needle and seat's not sealing right, and then it keeps pouring too much gas in here. And then I thought that was causing the engine to flood, and that was making it too rich to run. But then I would take the plug out and it'd be bone dry, and the whole crankcase would be bone dry. I took the head off, looked at everything, but then I realized none of that is the issue. It's the valves. So I know I said that the valves were good. The valves are not good. So the valves look good visually, but they're not. Let me show you. Alright, I'm hoping you'll be able to see this on camera. But here's the muffler. Now I'm going to turn the engine over. I'm going to try to get it going the right speed that you can see what's happening here. It backfired there. But did you see? See how it's sucking this in? The exhaust is not supposed to suck in. So, you might think, well, it's out of time. It's not out of time. I checked the time. It's good. Timing's good. But what's happening is neither the intake or the exhaust valve is sealing. So both of the valves are sucking in and blowing out, just depending on what the cylinder does. So cylinder's going down, they're sucking in. Cylinder goes up, they're blowing out. Which is also why I'm getting gas down in here. Because cylinder goes down, it sucks in gas. Cylinder comes back up, it pumps the gas back in backwards through the carb and pumps it out down there. And it goes out back out the intake. So you can even see, even right now, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a fuel drip right here. It just came out, just that amount of running the thing dumped fuel out. So that's why occasionally it'll just backfire because some fuel gets where it's supposed to be and it'll fire like once, but it's not under the right compression. So it just backfires once and then it doesn't actually run. So I need to fix the valves. So I need to take the head back off again. It's like going to be like the 5th time I've got this head off. And I need to lap the valve. So this is what I got for doing the valve job. You'll see in a minute, but you do need a tool like this to do valves on an L head. And I got some valve grinding compound. And I'm just going to lap them by hand. I'm going to try to just lap them by hand. We'll see how that goes. I don't have a tool. Alright, let me get this taken apart to the point where we're ready to work on the valves. Alright, I got the engine set up on a workbench here where I can work on it. Alright, engine's apart. Valves are here. It's a cylinder. So we need to get the valve springs off. Those are here and here. So, to get these valve springs off, probably the easiest way to do it is just get one of these tools. This is like a trim removal tool or something. It's supposed to be used for getting those little plastic clips out of like trim panels on cars. But you can use it, and if you pry, I guess what I should say before I do this, these don't have traditional keepers the way that you would normally see in most engines. They just have this plate underneath, so there's a plate on each one, and the plate has an offset hole in it. So if you pick the plate up and slide it forward or back, or however, these things can rotate, so you got to get it lined up the way you want it. But you lift it up and you push it over, and it'll come down off of the valve. So see, it wants to rotate towards me, but I have to push it away. It might be easier if I rotate this, but I'm going to just try it this way for now. There we go. Alright, so I was able to push it back. I was able to pry on it enough and push it back, and now it's down off of the valve. So the valve should just come right out the top now. Alright, I got the intake valve free. So I'm going to pull the intake valve out. Come on. There it is, that's the intake valve. This one I gotta figure out where the clip is on this one. Oh, this one is a regular keeper. Alright, so the exhaust side was a regular split keeper like that. I don't like that because honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to get that back together. But this one was the easy slotted keeper. There's the exhaust valve, and you can see it's very dirty. This is probably our main culprit here. I'm going to do my best to clean this up. And clean this one up, and then we're gonna lap them in. Alright, so I got these valves cleaned up. This is the exhaust valve. That's the intake valve. Intake valve needed almost nothing. This one needed a lot of scrubbing to get the carbon off of it. It's still dark there, but there's no carbon really on it anymore. It's just dark. So next thing is I'm gonna put them in here and try to lap it in. I put both valves in. I should have did this before I took the valve springs off. But I tested them in their fit here, and just basically I held the valve closed and I blew in the hole, the intake hole and the exhaust hole here. Port, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Blew in the intake port with the valve closed to see if it was sealed, and the intake was sealed. Then I blew in the exhaust port to see if it was sealed, and it was not even close. So, alright, so I got some Permatex valve grinding compound. And we're going to put some of this. Going to open it up. We're going to put some of this on the valve. I'm just going to put it on the valve face here. And then we're going to lap it in. So all I'm doing is grabbing with this hand, I'm grabbing the bottom of the valve to spin it, and I'm putting down pressure here. So I'm just going to do this for a super long time, and eventually we'll be lapped in. Alright, I finished lapping both of them. You can see that there, the one I'm spinning is the exhaust valve. and you can see how shiny it is now. I think it's pretty good. Oh, sorry, this is the intake valve. But it's cleaned up good. Then this one is the exhaust valve. And there's a little bit of chunkiness in there still, but I think that's fine. I think it's going to seal up. So now I got to get all this grinding paste off of here, this is a reason I did not want to have to do this. That's why I didn't do it the first time I had it apart, is that you have to clean this grinding paste up really well because it's grinding paste. And you don't want that in your motor. So I'm just going to have to go ahead and make sure that I get this really, really clean. Alright, got everything cleaned out in there. So that valve, that's the intake valve. And here's the exhaust valve. Now, this is what I was talking about. This is the intake valve spring and valve keeper. So you see it's got this little offset, little circle thing in it. And what you do is push the spring up onto here while it's offset like that. So you push it on here and then you pull it over and set it back down. And it stays on there. I thought that this was on both of those valves for most of these small engines, but on this Briggs and actually the other one that I checked the other one, and they're both, the exhaust valves on both of them have these two keepers. And these are like a traditional valve keeper system on this one. So you got your valve spring, and then you got this thingy that you need to push up past that point. And then you can put your two valve keepers in. Alright, so those two valve keepers go in there. I'm having a hard enough time doing it here outside of the engine. I don't know how I'm going to get it in there. But basically you push, these two keepers go around this like that, and they're tapered. They got this little ridge on the inside that locks into this groove. And what you have to do is push up the spring far enough, and then this comes back down on there, sits on the tapers, and then it's locked on. And that's how you lock the valve spring. Now that's a traditional, most engines you take apart, like car engines and stuff, or any kind of engine really, will have this style keeper. Modern ones, most modern engines do. Well, for whatever reason they did it on the exhaust valve here, and it's going to be really hard for me to deal with that, I think. I'm just going to put some assembly lube on this valve. So that the valve guide is nice and lubed up. And we're going to put some on this one too. Now this stuff is probably not necessary to use with assembly lube on this engine. I didn't when I assembled the other part of it, but that was just because I didn't have any on hand. But just engine oil would probably work fine for this. So I guess first I should do the exhaust valve. This is going to be difficult. I already know that. So let's see how well I'm able to do this. Get this under there. I got it up on the lifter. That's good. Now this next part's probably going to be really difficult. So I got it on the lifter. Now I'm going to need to lift this enough Am I going to be able to get those keepers in there? Put some assembly lube on the inside of this keeper. Screwdriver is very slightly magnetic, which helps but also doesn't help. Alright, I got one side in.
And then almost immediately knocked it back off. I could literally show you over an hour of this struggle, but let's just skip ahead to where I actually got it together.
Well, that sucked, but I got it in. I got both of them in. You might notice that there's oil everywhere. I had to flip the engine upside down so that I could use gravity to help me get the keepers in. But I got them in, so we're good. Now we got to do the other side, which should be way easier. So here's the keeper for this side. I'm going to set it so that the wide part is forward, because when I pry, it tends to want to pull this towards me. So putting the wide part forward and the keeper part back will help it pull it towards me onto its spot on the valve. I put the keeper on first, and I'm going to pry the spring up to get that on and just kind of work it on there. This is a much lighter spring than the exhaust spring, I think. Feels lighter. All right. Spring is on. I'll lower the valve down. I got it most of the way on with that, but there. That looks good, I think. Okay, that's good, I think. I'm going to reuse this head gasket even though it came off kind of funny. I think it'll be okay. Well, I got the head on. Now, I was expecting the exhaust. This is the exhaust port. This is the intake port. I was expecting the exhaust port to only blow, which it looks like it does if you see it there, but when I feel it with my hand, it feels like it's blowing and pushing, just like it was before. I don't know. At least the intake port seems to only be sucking. So hopefully that's good enough. I was concerned about that, but I checked this engine over here. So this engine's still mostly together. I was concerned about the way that this felt on my hands. So I put the head back on this one. I had to use the head bolts off of this because I only have one set of head bolts here. So I put the head on this one and spun it over to see, and it felt exactly the same as this. So it's probably good. I don't know. I lapped the valves in. If it doesn't run now, I honestly have no idea what to do. But I'm going to try it. Honestly, if it doesn't run now, I'm probably going to see if I could get this one to run. Because I bet this one would run. It was a running engine when the ring stuck in it. And turns out the rings were barely stuck. And if I would have just tried to bar it over a little harder, it would have just ran, probably. Well, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't run. But, yeah, I'm going to try to get this one running first because I already got all the stuff on it, right? If I go back to this one, I got to change everything that I put on this one back over to that. All the pulleys and the coil and the throttle control and everything. And the carburetor all has to go on that. So I'm going to put this one back together first, see if this one runs. If it doesn't, then I don't know, decide something. So I really can't believe that this won't run, but we'll see. All right, you're looking at the bottom of the gas tank. There was a crack here, and I started plastic welding it. Now I've got this soldering iron that I was using. It had solder on it, so I actually got solder mixed into the plastic here. I did use white filler plastic because I just cut up a milk jug. This is polyethylene, I think. Seems like it's polyethylene, and that's what a milk jug is. So I'm using milk jug as my filler material, but I'm also using solder as my filler material, which is probably not a good thing. But I didn't realize how much solder was on the end of this when I started doing this. I probably should have ground it off. I didn't, so we are where we are. So this crack, I think it was started, somebody screwed this in too far. This is like a pipe thread. They screwed it in too far, they cracked it, and then it cracked along the tank. I already filled the crack along the tank. I might add more filler on top. Essentially all I'm doing is heating this with a torch. Like that. If you don't know, this is what soldering irons used to be before you had the electric ones. So this is how you would do it. You would just heat it up with a torch. The end of this is copper. So they call it an iron, but it's really copper. And then I'm trying to use this to melt in some plastic here. Oops. I think I'm cooled off too much. So I'm using this really thin plastic, and the idea that I have here is I'm trying to melt straight through the plastic, right? It's thin enough that I can melt through it. And if I melt through the plastic, that means I'm melting the plastic behind it, and it should bond. It should bond to what's behind it, right? That's essentially my weld penetration. You might wonder why I don't just use like JB Weld or something on this. In my experience, JB Weld on plastic tanks does not hold gasoline. Eventually the gasoline works its way behind the JB Weld and you lose your connection. So I'm hoping that this method works better. If not, I can always JB weld it after, right? Or try something different. I looked at buying a new tank. They're over $100. I could buy a whole engine for $100. Granted, it'd be a Chinesium engine, but I wouldn't mind if I had a Chinesium gas tank. Apparently they don't make them. Nobody makes an aftermarket. Or if they do, they're charging way too much money for an aftermarket. I assume that they're new old stock. I honestly have no idea what the solder being mixed in there is going to do to how well this seals. I don't know if it'll help or hurt. Probably hurt. I mean, honestly, I could probably just keep going and add material and adding material and adding material, and eventually there's going to be so much plastic in the way that nothing's ever going to be able to leak out of this, you know. It'll never be able to find its path out. I think I'm going to call that good. Yeah, if I ever do this again, I'm going to grind soldering irons back. And actually, I have so many of these old school soldering irons, I should just dedicate some of them to being plastic welders and never use them for solder. But this one was in my solder kit, so it's probably going back in there. The other advantage to doing it this way instead of JB Weld is it's like instantly usable. You know, as soon as the weld cools, you can put gas in it. Alright, now hopefully this holds gas. We're going to find out. Even before, it did not leak fast. It leaked very, very slowly. And I'm guessing this thing had no thread sealant on it. It's a pipe thread. I'm guessing they just tightened it and then it was leaking, so they tightened it more and then tightened it more and more, and then they cracked it. But I should just put Teflon tape on this and then these threads shouldn't leak. And the only place it would leak would probably be around this. So, alright, got some Teflon tape. I'm not going to put this in there very tight because I don't want to blow out my weld there. You know? The reason that this leaked to begin with was because the pipe thread got over tightened, which cracked it. So I'm going to try to avoid that. I'm going to be honest, I don't feel optimistic about that. That feels really loose. Change of plans. It looks like the threads in here are stripped right out, so no amount of Teflon tape is going to get it to seal. So, I'm going to drill it out deeper. There's deeper that it can go here. There, now it's drilled deeper. Turns out this is 1/8 inch MPT. And I'm just gonna tap it deeper. And then we're gonna run that thing in farther. And hopefully that will work for us. Now, I'll see if this thing will screw in far enough to actually engage some threads. Oh, that That's probably gonna work. Now that's tight. I was gonna say, if it didn't work, see what I can do is cut this back a little bit. I think I'm gonna do that just to be safe. So I'll cut some of the top off of this so that I can screw this in further to get it into the threads. Because now I cut the threads deeper, which means the taper comes up higher, so it's wider at the top. So I got to screw it in farther to get it to seal tight, because these are tapered pipe threads. All right, I'm just going to try to take just a hair off with my multi-tool cutter here. There we go. Nice thing about that is it lets me see how good my weld was. And it's pretty good. That's tight. Right? That's good. I like that. That makes me pretty confident that we got good penetration on this and that this weld's going to hold. Because when I try to pull this apart, you know, I only was heating just the outside edge of this, and it got penetration all the way through it, deep into the bottom of that there. And it's tight. I can't pull it apart. So now I'm going to tap this again just to clean out anything. All right, now we should have pretty good threads. Now I can put the petcock back in. I'm actually not sure which way this has to face. It's got to face this way, actually. So that should be good. I mean, no, I don't know. That looks like it's going to leak there. Yeah. I got to weld this better right here. Alright, so I'm going to do this off camera, but I'm just going to add more weld in here. When I crank this in there, it separated this crack again. So I'm just going to have to keep welding up until it holds. Alright, I built the weld up a lot more. And I got the fitting in. It actually is supposed to point this way. I had it right the first time. But it looks like it's holding. When I screw this in, it doesn't open up the gap at all. So I think it's good, hopefully. I put a lot more plastic on there. And I guess I can always just keep adding to it if this leaks. But we'll see. Alright, it's all buttoned back up. Everything's hooked back up. I don't have the air cleaner on yet, but that's because I want to be able to spray ether in there. I'm going to put gas in it. And we're also going to use starting fluid if we need to. But we're about to see if it's going to run. Or leak or whatever it's going to do. Yeah, it's already leaking. Alright, I'm not going to worry about that right now. It could be the valve itself. So hopefully it is. Hopefully that petcock's just bad. I'm going to open it up. Make sure we got gas to the carburetor. Yep, we got gas to the carburetor. Interesting. Let's see. think it's doing the same thing it was doing before. It does not want to run. Alright, I drained the gas out of the tank. I put in a different spark plug. I'm not hopeful that this is going to work, but I'm going to try it again. I think possibly two things are happening. One, it was flooding. So I shut the gas off, drained all the gas and disconnected it, so it shouldn't flood anymore, although it's still probably got a lot of vapor in it now. And I changed the spark plug. I think this one was at least... I had an engine kind of running with that spark plug, so it's probably good. Wowee! It does run. Maybe it was the spark plug all along. So I did a valve job for no reason. So if you don't know, that's a shutoff. That's hot. Don't touch the exhaust after it's running. Alright. So I just need a new spark plug. Wow. That's stupid. This spark plug worked too. I wonder if this spark plug is just like it had too much resistance in it, so it took too long to spark and it screwed up the timing. But yeah, new spark plug. Well, not new. Old spark plug from a different machine. It runs. Alright. Now I just need to make it stop leaking gas and stop flooding the carburetor. And then it'll be all good. Alright. Alright, I just wanted to show you this up close. Now this little tab here, at some point I had it like pointed off that direction. That's not right. This is actually the shutoff for the engine. And all it is a piece of metal, right? And you just touch it to the top of the spark plug, and that grounds out the spark plug. No more spark, engine shuts off. That's it. So on these old Briggs motors, that was it. That was the shutoff. So when you want to shut the machine down, you just push on this. And that's it. So I cleaned up the top of the spark plug wire and the bottom of this plate. I sanded them down so that they're clean metal again, so you get good contact. And that's how you shut it down. And that's how I just shut it down earlier when you saw it running. Alright, I'm not sure if you can exactly see, but that crack there, I think what's happening, why this is leaking, is the crack is still there in the threads. So that crack is just letting the gas go right around. So what I need to do, I'm going to take a nail and heat that up and then melt in here the section, and then I'm going to need to add material and keep pushing it on there and adding material in, and then I'm going to have to go back through and cut the threads again. That was an aluminum nail and I melted it too much. I melted the nail right off. I heated it too much, I mean. So let's see if this works. Yeah. I might need to use... I'm going to have to use a steel nail. I got to go find one. I just used aluminum because I found it first. But I can't get it hot enough. I'll just melt the aluminum. Alright, I got a steel nail now. It's bent. I think that's good enough. Okay. Hopefully that's good enough. We'll find out in a second. Alright, I just put the petcock on and put gas in it and tested it, and it still leaks. So, my new plan is, I've got this brass fitting. This is 1/4 inch MPT to 1/8 inch MPT. So this will screw into that, and this should seal in there, no problem. Right, if I get it in the brass. And then the brass fitting I'm going to put in the bottom of this. So I got to drill this out bigger. Alright, I got the brass fitting screwed in there, but we have the same crack problem around here, so this is probably going to leak. So I'm going to weld it in place with plastic. Should be able to melt this in. This is kind of a thick piece of plastic I'm using, so hopefully I get enough penetration here. Alright, I got it all welded up. I actually took it back out, unscrewed it back out, heated it up, and then shoved it in to get, make sure the head was down in there good. And then I just welded around it to get it to stay in there. But now, there's a brass fitting down in there that's embedded in the plastic. And if I don't cross thread this, there we go, I can put in this fitting. Now that should be a good seal. It's a brass fitting. The brass fitting's not going to split out. The only issue that I'll ever have is if that brass fitting spins. But I think it's got enough plastic around that head of that nut that that's not going to happen. Plus the threads are locked in. I think that that's going to be good. Alright, let's clean up the frame a little bit. Alright, I've got everything buttoned up and we're ready to go down to the property where we're going to be using this thing. I did check. It does pull start over easy, one pull, no problem, starts right up. The thing is though, I was using starter fluid to start it when I was doing that. I was not running it on gas. The reason I was not running it on gas is because I don't want to actually hook the gas tank up to the carburetor after I was drilling all that plastic and stuff. I'm afraid that I'm going to get plastic in the carb and plug stuff up. So, before I ever turn the gas on there, I'm going to put an inline fuel filter between the tank and the carb, and that'll catch any of that junk before it can plug up the carb. But we're going to do that down in the woods, so let's get this thing loaded up. good enough. It's gonna have to ship like that.
Okay.
I'll strap it down, of course.
Good.
I don't think I filmed any of that, but we took it off of that. I greased it and we oiled the chain. We still got to put on inline fuel filter, so I'll do that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna add this in, I think, right about here. The filter goes that way. Always important.
She wants to put on a dog again, look at her. Now we can't hear. Ah? They're still up there. The buckle? Yeah, one chipmunk can use. Pull her arm out of her socket or something.
I had to modify this tank because it kept leaking, and there's definitely plastic shavings in it, so that's why I'm putting this fuel filter on. All right, fuel filter is on. It's filled up. Everything's hooked up. Let's try running it. All right, that worked pretty well in here. We're gonna see how well it does on bigger stuff. So yeah, it turns out I accidentally made a combination brush hog smoke machine. So we've got a ridiculous amount of blow by in the crankcase. If I open the crankcase oil and run it, it just shoots oil out of it. Maybe I'll show you that in a minute, but I'm gonna have to take that motor back apart and see what's what with it. That's gonna be for another video because this video is getting way too long. But it does work, and it does mow brush, so it's a good brush mower. So I'll start it up and you'll see how smoky it is. Probably what happened, and I knew that this was a possibility when I honed that cylinder. You know, I never measured it. I honed it, the piston's too loose in there, the rings aren't sealing, and it's just giving a crazy amount of crankcase pressure. But it runs enough, you know, it's got power, it's fine, but it smokes like crazy. So what I'm probably going to do is use the other engine. But like I said, that's for another video. Right now we're going to mow some brush. Alright, I'm gonna end this video here on this brush mower. It works, kind of. Well, it works fine. It just smokes a lot, burns a lot of oil. You probably have to put more oil in it than you will gasoline. But you could use it. There will be another video out on this. I'm gonna swap the engine again, but that's the end of this one. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.